I am sharing my screen and I want to go through this PowerPoint here about test anxiety and studying for tests. So I made this because I've had a lot of students who have expressed that to me that they have anxiety when they take tests, especially during timed tests. So I wanted to put together this little workshop and then this video. So these PowerPoints are actually for a live workshop, but I thought for my online students or anyone else who might benefit that I could make a little video out of the slides. So I'm going to go through these and hopefully you'll find some tips here that'll help you. So if you feel like this, the first time you see the exam versus after the professor corrected it, you're like, why did I make this mistake? How did I not know this? It looks so easy now. Maybe you've finished studying and you feel like you get to the test and your mind has been wiped blank. You might have some sort of anxiety. Maybe you spend the whole test a big portion of the test trying to figure out what grade you'll get if you handed it in now without finishing the test. Those are just some kind of humorous ways to think about what if you might have test anxiety. So instead of writing this like we would in a normal workshop or discussing, we'll just keep going on. But do you have test anxiety? You might have test anxiety if you experience anxiety and that affects your performance. If after leaving the testing environment, you wonder why you chose an incorrect answer when you knew the right one, but you were just kind of had a clouded thought process during the test. Maybe you change your second guess your answers and then you get the answers incorrect when you do this. Do you go blank or become so overwhelmed that you have trouble thinking through questions to come up with the answers? If you do have any of those things, you might have a little bit of anxiety when it comes to test time. Did you know that our college, Salt Lake Community College, has a disability resource center? If you didn't know that, that's something you might want to look into. There are testing accommodations such as extended time and things if you do have documented anxiety. So there's a website there if you'd like to check out more on that service. Again, it does have to be documented to be able to receive accommodations. But what do you do when you forget what to do? Let's talk about those with math anxiety versus those without. Those with math anxiety see math and panic. They have emotions that clutter their pathways. They can't think. They lose confidence. Just the bottom line is they can't think because their brain has stopped moving. And for whatever reason, they can't get it to start moving again, or you might not have the tools that you know how to use to get it to start moving again. But those without math anxiety, they don't let their brain, or their brain doesn't stop, and they might know tools to help it keep moving. So some of the tools maybe they use is to try to make sense of the wording. They call from memory the right formula. If they're stuck, they are able to rethink, reread, return to the memory bank within their brain. So the brain's not stopped. It might not have the final answer yet, but it's at least returning to the memory bank and it continues to move round and round. So the bottom line is it keeps moving through their thinking process pathways until the problem is solved. Now I'm just trying to make a quick video. This workshop would be an hour and a half long, and I don't want to make an hour and a half video. I don't think anyone will watch that long of a video. So I'm just going to go pretty quickly through some of these slides, but some common myths that we don't want to become excuses to fail. Here, only few can do math. That's not true. Only math is a male domain. Not true. Don't let those become excuses to fail. Anyone can do it if you can put the time in. I truly believe that. So the essence of doing math is to not stop, but to keep on going. It's to keep that brain moving through those ideas, even if you don't happen upon the right idea yet. Just to keep moving is the key. So here's some things that I put up here. Active thinking, self-monitoring, recognize when the panic starts so you can unpanic somehow. We'll talk about ways to keep the brain moving. Explore your confusion. Remember, it's okay to be confused. Maybe even in a test, we hope that you get to the point where you can just show all the things you know without getting confused. But if you get confused, that's normal too. And we want you to work through that by writing down your thoughts, writing down anything, calculations, any problem-solving steps. Give yourself permission to be confused and write down those steps so that you can eventually master it. Get out of that paralyzing effect. Write something down. Remember, write something down. So here's some test taking strategies. When you're prepared, you're confident, but when you have a strategy, you're comfortable. And that's where we want you to get to, is where you're comfortable and prepared, so that the anxiety doesn't wipe away all the preparation that you had. So look over your entire test, start with problems you know. When you get to your test, write all the formulas you know, show all your work. That way you can get partial credit, even if you don't get the full answer. Try to never leave a problem blank. That goes with the last one. Make sure you read questions carefully. Never waste time erasing. I like this one. Draw a line through your work, because first of all, it wastes time. Second of all, you might want to go back and see something you did that you realized was right. Also, a professor or teacher might like to see what you've done and give you partial points for that. So don't erase if you can. There's room enough to just keep writing. Don't give up. Verify your answers. Make sure they make sense in the context of the problem. And if you finish early, check every problem. That means rework everything from scratch if you have the time. I like to show some student samples to give you ideas, because a lot of times you might not know that you can do this on a test, but you can. Some of these samples describe some of the strategies I just went through, so I like to show these. So here's an example of a student who kept their brain moving, did not waste time erasing. It's a multiple choice problem, but you can tell, look, there's lots of work here. Might look messy to some of you, but they didn't waste time erasing. They wrote their notes to their teacher to indicate how they tested different values and which one worked. Now that showed me as a teacher that they understood part of this process. They checked -6 works, but after doing the problem, I get 2. This is hard to decide. So it ends up B was the right answer. They circled A. They got some points. I think that they were confused on which one, if -6 works or not. Write your teacher notes if you need to. I think they will appreciate you showing any knowledge you know. Attempt all parts on a several part problem. Just because you can't get one of the parts right doesn't mean you might not get the other ones right. So this student, even though they got part A incorrect, because they used the wrong formula for part A, and if you need to pause this and want to look at it longer, you can, this video. But they displayed sound reasoning and showed all their work for part B and C, even though it was based on the wrong numbers from part A. It was the right concept and sound reasoning, and so they got parts B and C correct, even though they were using the wrong values because part A was wrong. So they got points for B and C. So remember to always try all parts on several part problem. Here's another example. This student got part A correct, but not parts B and C. As they reflected on their answer, they knew it didn't make sense. Now here's the thing, teachers love when students recognize if their answer doesn't make sense. So this one I gave them 0.5 points out of 4 because they realized, okay, this problem talks about, it's an investment problem. They need $1 million for retirement. After they did their parts A and B, they realized all the interest they earned was $4.16. And obviously, out of 35 years you're investing, you probably earn more than $4.16, right? So he said, yeah, I know that can't be right. We like when you recognize that, because isn't that what learning math and problem solving is all about, is to apply it to the real world? If they got this problem correct on the test, but then they went out in the real world and couldn't recognize when a number was off like this, then I haven't done my job as a math teacher. I want you to be able to recognize when something's wrong. And so I give points for that. And I think I'm probably not the only math teacher that will do that. So reflect on your answer, see if it makes sense. Here's another one where they reflected, where they didn't actually reflect. This is kind of a non-example, because this person, the problem is talking about depositing $5,000 into an account for 5 years. And this student, because they used the wrong formula, got that they will have turned that $5,000 into $4 million. Now that is a large amount of money that $5,000 probably couldn't turn into in 5 years. So it should raise a red flag because it's a very large number. If they would have written me a note and said, now, I know that's a big number. That doesn't make sense with the context of this problem. I don't think 5,000 could turn into 4 million in 5 years. They would have got a few points for that, or, partial points to recognize, okay, I probably used the wrong formula here, but I don't have time to go back and fix it. All of those little ways, reflecting on your answer can give you partial points. Write formulas instead of leaving a problem blank. Okay, so this person got the wrong answer, but they used the right formula. If they would have just wrote the answer without the formula there, I would have given them no points at all because the answer was wrong. They must have just typed it in the calculator wrong. But because they wrote the formula there, I gave them 3 out of 5 points because they showed that they understood the concept. They just didn't understand how to type it in the calculator correctly. Same thing here. Standard deviation, answer was wrong, but they used the right formula. So display any knowledge you have on the subject. Not only will it give you a chance at partial points, but it will keep your brain moving. So this person also, again, you might not know what standard deviation means, but they didn't know how to correctly find it, but they related it to another topic that they did know how to do. So they got partial points for doing it. So also, it kept their brain moving. And so that was a good example. So I'm going to wrap this up soon. I don't want to make this too long of a video, but I'm just going to quickly go through some preparation so that you don't have, the more prepared you are, hopefully the less anxiety you'll have when you get into the test. I hear a lot of students say they spend a decent amount of time on the homework and notes, but nothing seems to be working. Planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. So if you're struggling within a test setting, planning early will hopefully do something about it now so that when you get there, it's not going to happen as much. So currently preparing, here are some ideas. Begin studying early, do tricky problems repeatedly. Don't just do them all on a cram day. Do it once a day up to, a week or 2 weeks before the test. Help other students with homework. Explaining to others can help you remember the material better. Find a group or a study buddy to work with. Make notes on difficult problems as you do your homework to ask your teacher about. Remember, your teacher is there to help you. Use them. Make flashcards for vocabulary words. Ask questions in class. All of these things you might not think as test preparation, but they are. Asking questions in class is a great way to prepare for tests. Discuss homework problems with classmates before class. If you have a few minutes before class and you're sitting there waiting for the instructor to start, talk about homework problems with other people. Ask them how they did that problem. If your exam is timed, make sure to practice doing problems in a timed setting. That way you're preparing for the future and bringing it into the present. Write yourself a little practice test based on your homework problems that you've done before and see if you can do it in a timed setting. Find creative ways to organize your notes that make them easy to look back on. What not to do. Don't start studying the day before the test. Don't study with a group that's going to distract you. You might think, oh, I went to a study group. Like, why did this not help me? Well, if you're distracted the whole time, then you probably would have been better off not going to the study group. Don't study in a distracting environment. You're watching TV or you're texting or you're getting distracted. That's not going to be as beneficial. Don't make review material that takes longer to make than it does to review. In one of those strategies, I said maybe make some review material like flashcards and stuff, but if you're making them and it takes longer to make them than it does to use them, they might not be beneficial. Don't let social media distract you. Don't study on an empty stomach. So I'm going to end there. Hopefully that helped give you some tips so that you don't have as much anxiety. Remember to bring the future into the present by preparing. And good luck on your next test.